Adam and Eve's biggest mistake. Now, if you're familiar with the story of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, you know that they had one job, one very simple job, and that was to not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. But they disobeyed God, and they did it. And in this video, I want to talk about why that was the biggest mistake in human history. Now, when Adam and Eve ate from that tree, what happened is they suddenly became very aware that they were naked. And so they tried to cover up their nakedness with fig leaves. Now, the fig leaves are a symbol of their attempt to hide their sin. They knew that what they did was wrong, and so they were trying to cover it up. But the problem is, you can't cover up sin. You know, you can't hide sin. Sin always has consequences, and those consequences are either immediate or they're future, but you can't escape those consequences. And so, Adam and Eve, after they ate from the tree, tried to escape the garden. They tried to run from God, but they couldn't do that successfully. And the reason why is because sin always separates us from God. It always has. It always will. And so, Adam and Eve, as a result of eating from that tree, found themselves separated from God for the first time in their lives. And that separation brought death into the world. Before that, there was no death in the world, but sin brought death into the world. Sin brought pain, suffering, sickness. All those things entered into the world as a result of Adam and Eve's decision to eat from that tree. And so, listen, we have to understand that sin always has consequences. Now, God was gracious to them though. Even though they sinned, He still allowed them to stay in the garden for a season. But eventually, they had to leave. They were driven out of the garden. But the promise of God is that someday He would send a Redeemer who would crush the head of the serpent, who would deal with the issue of sin, who would pay the price for our sin, so that we could have everlasting life. See, Adam and Eve didn't have that promise when they were in the garden. If they had the promise, they wouldn't have been so afraid. But they were afraid because they knew that they had just sinned against a holy God, and they knew that God was just, and they knew that they deserved judgment. We have to remember that God is a God of love, but He's also a God of justice. And in order for God to be just, He had to deal with sin. And so Jesus came and He dealt with sin. He took the punishment that we deserved, so that we could receive everlasting life. So, Adam and Eve, even though they made the biggest mistake that anyone could ever make, God was still merciful to them. And God will be merciful to us if we put our trust in Jesus Christ, who paid the price for our sin, so that we could be free from the penalty of sin, so that we could have everlasting life. I hope that's a blessing to you. Until next time, God bless you.